On everyone, welcome back. In this video we are looking at the Thursday night football picks between the Dolphins and the Jaguars. It is the Battle of Florida in this one. Not sure how many people outside of Florida would have been excited to watch this game on a Thursday night had it not been for DFS, but this has really boomed the interest in a lot of these sports, so that's great, especially when there's teams that nobody's going to be dying to watch these two teams play. But there are $300 up for grabs, $300K up for grabs on Draftkings. Fanduel has some big tournaments as well, so let's get into it. Looking forward to this one. We will touch on all the players that you could consider or should be in your player pool. Look at some snap counts to see which players are playing more, which guys will have more opportunities, and then we'll look at some builds. So before we get into anything, would really appreciate it if you hit the like button on the video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out the Twitter, it's in the description, the website in the description. So with all that said, let's get started here. At quarterback, Gardner Minshew is your most expensive guy on the slate at $11K. He's $800 more expensive than Fitzpatrick, and looks like Gardner Minshew does not want to give up his job and does not want to tank for Trevor Lawrence, as you would kind of expect for him. He has continued to play well. He's been playing great. He completed 95% of passes somehow in week 1, and then he followed up with 67% completion, 3 touchdowns, had 2 interceptions, the last one coming on the last drive as they tried to get down the field. Was a bit of a tip pass, but overall he's been playing pretty good, pretty solid, and just like last season when he took over after Nick Foles got injured, he has continued to kind of impress. Battle in the matchup against Miami looks great for Minshew, so no problem. No concern that he suddenly has a really bad game this week. Fitzpatrick on the other side is $10,200. He has bounced back last week after getting roughed up by the New England defense in week 1. It's a spot where he gets a very winnable matchup against Jacksonville. They've lost so many quality pieces on their defensive end over the last couple years, and this is the best matchup he's had the first 2 weeks. Both Buffalo and New England are really good and tough defenses, especially New England. So I feel pretty confident that Fitzpatrick will have a good game. So if you want to play both quarterbacks, I think that both quarterbacks are probably going to be in the optimal if things kind of go according to how I kind of see it. Chark Jr. is $9,400. We could look at the snap counts if you want. Last week, Chark played 79% of the snaps, and then he was the highest on the team. The second guy was Keenan Cole, and then Shenault was third with 57%. Conley got an increase up to 45%. If you look back at week 1, you could see that Shenault's went down a little bit, but Conley's went up a lot. But it looks like Johnson's not going to play that much anymore. You've got 18% in week 1. But really, it's Chark, just your main guy, and then Keenan Cole and Schultz are going to get a lot of the, probably going to be tied for second and third on Jacksonville. So if you want to play up for Chark, you can. He's $9,400. He's expensive. It's just been the fact that Minshew has been really spreading the ball around this year. So his targets have been a lot lower than they have been last season when he had a 20% target share. He's down to just 7 targets, but he has caught all 7 of them. So it's a really good spot for him against his defense. I think that this is a week that he could go off. Devontae Parker on the other side, he is Devontae Parker is $8,400. He has been the most consistent wide receiver on the Dolphins the first 2 weeks. He had 8 targets last week, caught 5 of them for 53 yards and a touchdown. He has been playing the most snaps, although it's pretty close between him and Preston Williams. Played 81% last week. You saw Ford play 64%. He's the third wide receiver on the team, and then in week 1, Parker and Preston Williams both led. Well, Parker maybe got hurt week 1, but Preston Williams led 90% in week 1. Then you got Ford playing 74%. So I think Preston Williams did end up going out in week 1, but overall it's going to be Preston Williams and Parker getting the most snaps at outside receiver, and then Ford as the slot guy. And then we have James Robinson. He is $7,800. He's been their main running back, although they have been willing to give Shenault some work at running back, and they have Chris Thompson, the former Redskin, who's been getting some work. So Shenault last week got 5 carries for 37 yards, so that's a good sign, just some more touches for him. So I think I'm more interested in the passing game this week than going with one of these running backs. But if you wanted to play Robinson, definitely can do that. Gesicki looks fine. He's probably going to be super popular this week. 7,400 coming off of a career game last week with 130 yards and a touchdown. 30 fantasy points. People are going to play him because of that. You could fade him just because of high ownership on a showdown. And he's not going to put up 30 fantasy points every single week. Myles Gaskin, he is 7,200. They just have a couple of guys that can get some work at running back. He is going to be the most preferred guy and will get 10 plus targets every single week. But they also have Matt Breida, who gets some work, and they have the former Eagle Jordan Howard and former Bear Jordan Howard. So he's not the most reliable guy to get all the goal line situations, because Howard, obviously a big guy that can punch it in. So for that reason, I like both these receivers a little bit more than Robinson and Gaskin. I like Preston Williams to bounce back. He has been having some issues with the drops, but if you remember last year before he got hurt in week 9, he was their best receiver in the first 8 weeks. He was a rookie last season in weeks 1 to 8, playing with Josh Rosen. He had some of his best weeks of any of the Dolphins receivers. He was doing better than Devontae Parker for the first 8 weeks, and then once he got hurt, Parker kind of rose. So I don't mind playing Preston Williams at all. He's only caught 3 of 12 targets, which is bad to see. He has had some drops, and I just feel confident that he will bounce back against a Jacksonville team. It's a much easier matchup for him on the outside. They've given up some big games to receivers in the first couple weeks. They give up pass yards, and he's a guy that last week he did drop a touchdown, so that would have added to his fantasy point. That would have made him more popular this week. 6,800 for Preston Williams. I definitely like him. And I like Chenault Jr. at 6,600. He is also like that third wide receiver, the rookie. He's played pretty well. Had a touchdown in his first week. Got 4 targets exactly the first 2 weeks. They look to get him a little bit more involved in the running game as well, so that's a pretty good sign. And then we have, not that interested in playing any defense this week. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. You have Keenan Cole. That looks like a pretty good play at 5,400 for Keelan Cole, a super cheap receiver who's going to be that second guy for the team in terms of snaps. He's been playing the second most snaps at receiver besides Chark. Get a huge price discount playing him. I like him more than Schultz on Draftkings for sure. And then Lambeau's on the IR, so you have a really cheap kicker. I don't know if he's even on this. Roster for DraftKings. Oh yeah, he's right. Oh, that's Sanders at 4,200. Looks okay. Let's see if we can find the depth chart for the kicker of the Jaguars. Not even on here. So Brandon Wright. He's on Fanduel though. If you wanted to play him, not that keen on playing him. He made 12 of 18 kicks in his last year in college. So don't think he's gonna be very good. I don't know if they'll be super comfortable with him taking long kicks. And that is pretty much it for me in terms of going super cheap. The cheapest I would probably go is Chris Conley, who is going to get some snaps. He got more increased work last week, as you can kind of see with the snaps. He's only $2,200, so that's a pretty good sign. He played 45% snaps last week, got 7 targets. He looked pretty good, so definitely think Chris Conley is in play. If you wanted to play Chris Thompson, you can for it also. So for me, I'm focusing on the passing game a lot more than the running game this week. Think that there's a lot of guys, a lot of cheap receivers that can go off, a lot of expensive receivers on both sides that can go off, and I like both the quarterbacks. So let's look at some builds that we could look at. There are enough cheap players that I feel comfortable with paying up for Gardner Minshew at my captain spot at 16.5 on DraftKings. Put in Fitzpatrick, you're down to 58.25, but then we can go down here, put in some of our cheap receivers that we know are going to get some work and know are going to be out on the field, like Isaiah Ford, 3,000, the number 3 receiver on the Dolphins. The Dolphins have a lot less guys that can catch passes than the Jaguars do. He got 9 targets last week, looked really good out there for him. He's only 3K. You have Chris Conley, Chris Thompson, both of those guys are super cheap if we needed to go to anybody else below 2,500. In terms of paying up a bit, we paired Fitzpatrick with Ford. You could also pair him with Gaskin or Preston Williams if you wanted to. You could pair Minshew with Keenan Cole, who's just really cheap for some reason at 5,400 on DraftKings. And then we can even pay up for like a Chark if we wanted to, and still pay up for another guy at running back. So this looks pretty good. Like, we could do exactly whatever we want on here. 6,400 left. Super close to be getting to, you know, some of the guys I really want. So if I play Fitzpatrick instead of Minshew at captain, both guys are pretty similar. And then we can play Preston Williams and really focuses on the Miami side. If you wanted to make it a balance, you could play Chenault with Keenan Cole, with Minshew, Parker, with Fitzpatrick, and with Ford. So this is probably like the one that I like a lot in terms of focusing on the pass catching options. Also mentioned that I do like Preston Williams a lot. I feel like there's no reason for me to go super cheap at captain this week because I like a lot of these guys that are super cheap, that are below 2,500. I don't know why DraftKings has Conley, Thompson, all those guys below 25. Those guys are getting at least like 40-50% of the snaps, and they're able to get some red zone work, and Chris Thompson on third down situations. So I like that, how that looks. If you really felt like playing Minshew at captain, could do that with Fitzpatrick, and then leave some money out on the table, and then play Conley if you want, and then go up to Preston Williams here if you wanted to do that. But yeah, those are like two builds that I would consider. I am definitely focusing on the passing game attack this week. I'm not that interested in the running backs, although if you wanted to, you have the cap to pay up for Robinson. Let's do one with Chark, just because I think that there's a chance that he could go off this week. So if instead of Keenan Cole, if you wanted to go off for Chark, you could do that, and then go down to Ford here. You're sacrificing a bit in terms of your wide receivers, taking out Keenan Cole and taking out I think we took out Preston Williams, but Ford has upside, and Chark definitely has as much upside as anybody on this one. And then 2,500, can't get up to Thompson, although Conley is probably similar to Thompson, maybe even better. And I'm not that sure I'll really be focusing on the kicking game. You only have one kicker that you could play on DraftKings, it's Sanders. But I feel like Conley could do better than him, Ford can do better than him, Keenan Cole at 5,400 can do better. So yeah, that's it. In terms of the core plays, these are just the core guys that I would have. It's either Minshew or Fitzpatrick at captain for me, and then it's going to be like Keenan Cole is just too cheap at 5,400 for a guy that's playing the second most snaps at wide receiver for the team. And then we have Ford at only $3,000 for the wide receiver 3, getting a huge portion of the snaps. He also looks really good. And then I do like Preston Williams a lot too at his price point at 6,800. Feel like he will go off, so I'll just put Preston Williams instead of Ford, just because we will have the cap to pay up for another wide receiver or two. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the DraftKings breakdown. We'll look at Fanduel now. Alright, so over on Fanduel, we have Gardner Minshew at $16,000. No surprise, he's the most expensive player. Then we have Fitzpatrick, $15K. Robinson is up to $14,000. I kind of prefer, like I mentioned on DraftKings, some of the pass-catching options more than him. But you could go to him if you want for less ownership, if you're really feeling it. Chark is questionable, but I think he's going to play tonight. Because he did practice in limited fashion the last couple days. Parker at $12K, I kind of like Fanduel. I would definitely go Preston Williams over Parker probably, if you definitely can't afford Parker. Both guys are going to be out there a similar amount of the time. It's just how Preston Williams has let some opportunities slip through his grasp, dropping a touchdown last week, dropping some passes in week 1. Also had some drops besides that touchdown last week. So as long as he's more sure-handed tonight, he's still going to get the work. I mean, they're one of their best receivers last year before he got hurt. And then Ford is $7K on FanDuel. You could play him if you want. Chenault, $7,500. He looks fine. And then Tyler Eifert, a guy that you could consider if you want him, and Conley if you wanted to go super cheap. If you look at the snap counts for tight ends, it was a pretty good sign for Eifert last week. He ended up playing the most snaps at tight end, play 60%, so that's a good sign for Eifert. Always has upside, it's always been the injury bug that's kind of derailed him back, even when for years when he was with the Bengals. And then unfortunately, it's not Patrick Laird's season, as some might have hoped, based on last year at some points of time when he was chalk. Alright, so that's kind of the rundown. It's really similar to Draftkings on Fanduel, which guys I like. So MVP, Gardner Minshew, Fitzpatrick, and then we're still left with 96.67, so basically 10k left. You have Gesicki if you want to do that. Keenan Cole, a lot more expensive on Fanduel as you would expect. Like, Fanduel got it right. DraftKings has him at 5,400 for some reason. Makes no sense. So definitely could play Keenan Cole if you want. Not that interested in playing the kicker. If you do play Preston Williams, pair him with Fitzpatrick, and then pair Minshew. Could pair him with Keenan Cole if we want to do that, or pair him with Chark at 13,000, and then we're down to 8k left, so we could play, Chenault and just leave $500 on the table. Or if you wanted to, Chris Thompson is 95 on FanDuel. I'm not that keen on him. We could go down to Chark, and then we will have 10,000 left. If you wanted to play like Gaskin, if you wanted to play a guy that at least Gaskin can catch some passes, so that will give him some upside. But personally, if you wanted to play Parker, you could do that. Play Parker, we're down to 9k. So you got Fitzpatrick with his two top receivers, then you have Minshew at captain. He spreads the ball around a little bit more, so you could do something like Chenault's there. You leave 1,500 on the table, that will be like really different. If you wanted to be a little bit safer in terms of not going crazy with leaving a lot of money on the table, you could play Chark if you want. But Chark and Parker are both similar. I think Preston Williams is going to have a really good night tonight, so I like him a lot. I think one other thing we could look at is playing Ford if you want instead of Williams. If you're not feeling Preston Williams for whatever reason, see if we can get even better at receiver. If we could play like Keenan Cole, and then we have 3,500 left, so we have 11k left for playing Gesicki. If you want to do something like this, you could definitely do that as well. So yeah, a lot of ways to go tonight. I think Minshew and Fitzpatrick are the two guys you want at MVP. I just see them having the best game out of anybody on the slate. And then in terms of receivers, you have a bunch of ways to go. I think I like the wide receivers a little bit more than the tight ends. You could play Gesicki if you want, just because he's Mike Gesicki and he's going to get some looks. But overall, I think the core pieces for me on FanDuel are probably going to be Minshew and Fitzpatrick, obviously. And then my third guy is probably going to be like one of these cheap receivers that are below 8,500, whether it be Ford, Chenault, or Preston Williams. Maybe Preston Williams, just because I mentioned I think he's going to have a good game tonight. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Thank you for watching, and good luck tonight.